what's going on to get a deal done. The fact is, your little feelings can't get all up in this. It's got to remain professional. Is there going to be little things said occasionally during negotiations? Sure. But you also don't have to make everything public. You don't have to run and tell every little thing that happens. So we got Breanna Stewart, who, look, I've said before, just like Collier, neither one of these people should be involved in these negotiations at all.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver reportedly experiences mounting irritation regarding ongoing WNBA collective bargaining discussions. Approximately 48 hours remain before another possible work stoppage becomes reality. Recent developments require examination of circumstances unfolding in New York. Updates emerge concerning CBA bargaining processes. 2 days separate current circumstances from January 9th, when existing arrangements terminate at midnight. Multiple reports indicate continued athlete dissatisfaction with ownership groups. However, information suggests Silver grows increasingly annoyed with overall proceedings. Sources indicate he anticipated resolution occurring weeks earlier.
But at least she comes across here as professional in what she's saying, and she seems to think a deal is coming. And let's be real. Regardless of how tough Collier wants to talk, we're not going to cave in. Well, if you want to play basketball in the WNBA, you're going to have to. Because they're going to shut the league down if you don't. They're not giving you 30% revenue or whatever in the hell that ridiculousness is. And on top of that,
instead, circumstances require his direct intervention, pulling attention from other responsibilities to facilitate these discussions. The fundamental issue appears rooted in unrealistic financial expectations from athletes regarding available resources. The WNBA operates without substantial surplus funds to distribute. Financial difficulties persist throughout the organization. Athletes should accept modest compensation increases, continue competing, and contribute toward building sustainable operations. Public complaints and media appearances attempting to undermine ownership seem counterproductive, especially considering stakeholders endured 3 decades of financial challenges. Many observers overlook this historical context. Caitlin Clark's emergence provided tremendous benefits for the organization.
30% revenue or whatever in the hell that ridiculousness is. And on top of that, you're sitting in front of everybody, in front of all these fans and saying, we don't want raises. They're at 9 times what, by the end of the next CBA, it would literally be a 9 times salary increase. You're telling people you don't want that. You got to be kidding me, right? It's not a good look. After complaining about, because for years, all we heard about was money. So after years of complaining about money, now it's not about money anymore. You want it to be about revenue sharing.
However, one individual cannot remedy 30 years of accumulated problems and negative baggage. Clark potentially addresses 5 years of difficulties, perhaps extending to 10 years as her popularity expands and attracts additional audiences. Yet current behaviors risk damaging this momentum. Athletes criticize new supporters, diminishing interest levels. Complaints about social media activity and video content creators work against existing enthusiasm to points where engagement suffers dramatically. Current content struggles to generate 5,000 views, reflecting harsh realities nobody else addresses openly. Every outlet experiences difficulties. Unless content comes from specific established voices, everyone struggles substantially.
About revenue sharing, and I get it, that spawns more money, but come back to the table when the WNBA shows it can bring a true profit. Then maybe you can get somewhere. But until then, nah. And we're also going to take a look at, and all this is intertwined. The Unrivaled president, CEO, Alex Brazell, who is married to Nafisa Collier, is begging you, pleading with you on his...
Circumstances have deteriorated significantly. Despite challenges, coverage continues. Recent reporting from Front Office Sports, published approximately 1 hour prior, provides crucial information about current WNBA conditions. The headline indicates the WNBA hasn't responded to athletes' latest submission as deadlines approach. Athletes demand salary limits reaching $10 million alongside 30% of organizational revenue. League officials consider this proposal financially catastrophic. Requesting 30% appears absurd given available resources.
Pleading with you on his knees. Paige Bueckers is a superstar. And we're trying to convince you Paige Bueckers is a transcendent superstar. Please watch Unrivaled. They need her to prop up this league so badly with no stars. It is coming across as unbelievably desperate and cringe because I think they're seeing this league.
The organization lacks sufficient funds to provide such percentages. The mathematics simply doesn't work. How can anyone distribute 30% of resources that don't exist? Observers question where these funds would originate. Just over 48 hours before the January 9th deadline, the WNBA and Players Association remained divided over new collective bargaining terms. Sources familiar with discussions confirm the union awaits league responses to proposals submitted approximately 2 weeks prior as of Wednesday afternoon. Within that submission, athletes seek roughly 30% of total revenue alongside salary limits approaching $10.5 million.
They're seeing this league. He come out the other day talking about WNBA. You got your ears on. We're open to a partnership, possibly. I'm sure you are. Breanna Stewart, right here, guys.
Timeline's running down the CBA deadline. What's your level of confidence that a deal gets done, and what's a realistic timeline for that, if not within the next 3 days?
Yeah, the next 3 days is tough for sure. I am very confident that we will get a deal done. It's kind of unfortunate.
Front Office Sports verified these figures through independent confirmation. These aren't allegations, but confirmed facts documented through proper verification processes. Athletes want 30% of complete revenue, representing nearly half of available funds. How does anyone claim nearly half when resources haven't existed for 3 decades? Financial difficulties persisted throughout the organization's entire existence. Imagine someone demanding half your assets after experiencing bankruptcy for 30 years. The WNBA's continued existence represents remarkable resilience.
I am very confident that we will get a deal done. It's kind of unfortunate that it's taken this long, but hopefully we're going to be able to turn the page soon and really kind of get deep into all the negotiations that we've been struggling to agree on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So she's confident a deal could get done soon. It's probably not getting done by Friday. Friday is the deadline. Again, there's an expansion draft that needs to happen. Free agency needs to happen.
Additional reporting details emerged when ESPN initially covered the union's submission last week. League calculations suggest the proposal creates $700 million in losses for the organization and member franchises throughout the agreement's duration. Commentary during an Unrivaled broadcast Monday addressed criticism about player demands. One executive stated that much discussion centers on supposedly unsustainable requests. From experience running sustainable operations, this executive suggested that inability to identify viable models indicates need for different leadership. Claims emerged about proving viability in thriving operations. However, comparing 2 years of operational data against 30 years of established history lacks logical foundation.
Draft that needs to happen. Free agency needs to happen. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But, again, I think she comes across better. Shouldn't be involved. There's a conflict of interest there. Anybody that's involved directly with Project B or whatever, but I can't even, I don't want to act like that just players, like Project B doesn't have these players literally funding the league, and they're not owned.
The WNBA maintained salary obligations, facility costs, and various operational expenses throughout 3 decades. Evidence of actual profitability remains unclear. Last season, despite Caitlin Clark's positive impact, the organization reported $24 million in losses. These facts shouldn't be forgotten. The situation isn't complicated. Statements from certain athletes appear disconnected from financial realities. Both parties agreed to second deadline extensions hours before original CBA expiration on November 30th.
You can't really know what way the league is going to go. You can't really know what way your teammates are going to be. But she knows she's playing with Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston not only is looking fast, she looked sharp. Like a couple of those balls, those 50-50 balls that are just sharpness. A lot of the time, the sharper player gets more 50-50. She got all the ones on Malonga. She was reading the game well. Like, I was super impressed by how she played. So early on in the game, boom, let me just take Malonga inside. Let me wait, be patient. Let's run the.
Last month, the Players Association authorized potential strikes through voting participation reaching 93%. 98% approved, allowing the union's executive leadership to declare strikes when circumstances warrant. Without third extension agreements or work stoppages, whether ownership-initiated lockouts or athlete-initiated strikes, consequences aren't automatic. If neither party initiates stoppages, discussions could continue under status quo conditions. Under current CBA terms, athletes cannot strike without terminating extended arrangements. However, during status quo periods, the union could declare strikes at any moment. This scenario appears likely.
Let's run the pick and roll. Kelsey Plum's there. Malonga had no answer for her in the pick and roll. Malonga had no answer whatsoever for Aaliyah in the pick and roll. In fairness, the Paige Malonga pick and roll is tough to stop. It's tough to stop a pick and roll ever in 3x3, but she had no answer. There was no answer whatsoever for it. As you can see here again, Aaliyah's constantly sealing. And by the way, the Phantom missed Aaliyah so often on seals. She's outrunning Malonga down the floor.
If union authority exists for such declarations, strikes probably follow after January 9th. Predictions suggest late January 9th timing. No additional extensions seem probable. Union force strikes appear imminent based on available information. The Players Association likely initiates any forthcoming work stoppage against the WNBA. This assessment derives from article analysis. The union's submission countered league proposals from early December.
So often on seals. She's outrunning Malonga down the floor. Like, this is not something that you would see, you would have seen a year ago. Like, players like someone like a Malonga, somebody like a Cam Brink. These were players that were considered, these were considered like athletic, mobile bigs. And Aaliyah Boston was meant to be like your strong, slow it down, dump it in the post, bruiser type big. And I'm going to be completely real here. Like, Aaliyah has obviously shown that she can do that. But like,
the organization offered athletes 17% of net revenue, which sources familiar with discussions believe equals approximately 15% of total revenue. Salary limits would increase from $1.5 million to $5 million under the organization's latest terms. Proposed revenue arrangements would create maximum salaries exceeding $1.3 million, with average compensation surpassing $500,000 throughout the agreement's duration. Current circumstances reveal Silver's substantial frustration levels. Questions arise about inability to finalize agreements. The upcoming WNBA season faces serious jeopardy. Requests for nearly half of revenue seem unreasonable when such resources don't exist for distribution.
Do that. But like, Aaliyah can also run now. Like, not, and I don't mean run, she always run, but like, Aaliyah can outrun a Cam Brink, outrun a Malonga. And I don't think that is something that people like would have thought was going to be a thing a year, 2 years ago. If you had asked me a year ago, would there ever be a stage where I would say this statement that Aaliyah Boston is more of a threat in transition than Cameron Brink? I would have thought
the organization cannot provide what it doesn't possess. With only 3 days remaining until the negotiation cutoff, Breanna Stewart recently expressed optimism about reaching an agreement. However, the reality suggests that Friday's target date won't yield results. An accord by week's end appears highly unlikely, though this limitation carries minimal significance since extensions remain available. The scheduled endpoint holds little practical weight, and pushing timelines further changes nothing substantively. Some question why a work stoppage isn't being pursued, but such action would prove largely symbolic. Everyone recognizes the theatrical nature of such measures, and league leadership arguably doesn't view player concerns with full gravity.
Brink? I would have thought I'd be crazy. I would have said you're crazy. I still don't think she's a Malonga threat in transition, but I'm just saying she's more of a threat in transition than a Kiki Iriafen. Like, she's absolutely a major threat in transition, which is huge. Again, she's already one of the best pick and roll bigs. Like, if you're talking about like true pick and roll bigs, there's very few ones. There's very few bigs that can read the pick and roll. And even if you're talking about the true
Reports indicate ownership repeatedly characterizes athletes as lacking business acumen, essentially dismissing their understanding as fundamentally flawed. This perception gained reinforcement when FI made comparisons suggesting business expertise based on unrivaled experience, an organization operating at vastly different scales from the professional league. The ratio resembles claiming supermarket management capability based on running a successful roadside beverage operation. Such statements unfortunately validate ownership arguments about player perspectives being unrealistic. Despite this, prominent figures including Stewart, Fee, Clark, and Reese understand the critical importance of league continuation. The season must proceed regardless of tensions. Timing matters less, provided resolution occurs before early April.
even if you're talking about the true pick and roll bigs from the standpoint of players all over the world, like who is a true pick and roll big? Like Emma Messiman, but Aaliyah Boston's just so much quicker than her right now. Awafam, Aaliyah Boston's better at every other aspect of basketball than Awafam. Albeit Awafam, if you watch Awafam play, I'm not joking when I say this, her actual like ability to process the pick and roll is exceptional. Like there are levels to it. There are levels to it. And
Recent developments show athletes expressing confidence about eventual completion, contrasting sharply with discussions from 6 weeks earlier when phrases like slap in the face dominated conversations. Currently, the primary vocal critics are individuals with long-standing grievances against Commissioner Engelbert, particularly voices like Sato Sabally, who has publicly challenged leadership for years. These personal conflicts with Engelbert are understandable given that many ownership representatives and private equity figures involved create difficult working relationships. While replacing Engelbert wouldn't fundamentally alter structural dynamics, improved optics might benefit player relations. Another 6-week postponement seems probable, as all parties recognize that threatening walkouts before meaningful season impacts occurs remains purely ceremonial. Implementing a work stoppage now would primarily affect players rehabilitating or training with their franchises rather than participating in off-season competitions. Numerous athletes currently work with their teams, not just isolated cases like Clark with Indiana.
to it. And in fairness to Awafam, she's exceptional at it. She's absolutely exceptional at it. But you've then got nobody else. She's a better pick and roll big than John Quell. She's a better pick and roll big she's a better P and roll big than Aja. As a pure pick and roll big, I think Aja Wilson does a lot of other stuff. But in terms of just the way that she can read that pick and roll, I don't think like she is better at that aspect of basketball now.
Sydney Colson reportedly remains in Indiana temporarily before potential international commitments. Many injured players maintain team facility access for recovery purposes. Restricting these arrangements serves no practical purpose beyond demonstrating strike capability, which nobody disputes. Everyone, athletes, franchises, league officials, acknowledges that pre-draft work stoppages lack substantive leverage and function purely as gestures. Resolution likely arrives around mid-March, specifically targeting St. Patrick's Day on March 17th. This timeline accounts for Unrivaled schedule complexities.
Pick and roll. I don't think like she is better at that aspect of basketball than Aja. But yeah, it's mad. It's mad looking at this player who I felt like coming into her second season was limited to being a back-to-the-basket bruiser like she was at South Carolina. And the secondary trait of her game that was exceptional was her playmaking, but it was her back-to-the-basket playmaking. Turned into one of the best rollers. And by the way, let's be completely honest.
While that league's operations complicate negotiations, Tuesday through Thursday breaks provide opportunities for discussions. Unrivaled concludes March 4th, with the draft tentatively scheduled for April 15th. Projecting 2 weeks post-championship for agreement, followed by expansion draft procedures 48 hours later, positions free agency to potentially open April 1st. This compressed timeline provides 2 weeks between free agency and the draft, tight but manageable scheduling. This postponement carries minimal consequence ultimately. Despite concerns, completion remains inevitable because athletes understand the stakes. Regardless of business sophistication debates, players recognize that responsibility for league shutdown would define their careers negatively and damage women's professional basketball significantly, potentially setting progress back decades.